Hello, I'm Brady Eaton with OCJP, and today I'm going to talk to you about grant requirements for civil rights. So what we will talk about specifically is who do civil rights apply to, what are the civil rights laws and statutes, how do you handle civil rights complaints, and how do you handle the civil rights attestation. So when and to whom do civil rights regulations apply? To subrecipient employees or clients and anybody who is receiving services or benefits. So some resources that you can consult when you are looking at civil rights, you can go to the OCJP Grants Manual, Chapter 22, and it is right here. This is what it looks like. It goes over all the laws. It talks about the prohibition against discrimination, the discrimination complaints and how to handle them, your obligation to report complaints or findings of discrimination, how limited English proficiency plays into that or into civil rights and faith-based organizations. And then finally, it talks about compliance training with civil rights. The other resource that you have at your disposal is the OCJP website. And if you go on our webpage, you will see that there is a civil rights compliance website here, and you can find out how to file a discrimination complaint. You can also go to the training right here. And if you click on the complaint, you can also see there are two contacts. I am the OCJP Civil Rights Coordinator, and here is the email address to contact us about any civil rights issues. And there's also an F&A Civil Rights Coordinator, and that's Nathan Caldwell, and he's at this email link. And then there's also the policies right here and other resources. So if you have any questions, you can consult those. So what are the protected classes? We all know the first four: race, color, religious belief, and national origin. But then there are some others that are maybe less well known but no less important. Age, sex, which includes sexual orientation and gender identity, pregnancy, citizenship, familial status, disability status, veteran status, and genetic information. Here are the civil rights laws and non-discrimination provisions, and I'm not going to go over each one. Do know that we will post this WebEx up on our website, and you can access that at any time. But these are also on our webpage, as I pointed out just a minute ago. One thing I want to point out about civil rights is that it's an all-encompassing term. So it doesn't just refer to Title VI or Title IX, as is often associated with civil rights. It is this big blue bubble, and inside it are all of these components. So you have Title VI, Title IX, Title II, Section 504, the Safe Streets Act, Women Against Violence, or Violence Against Women Act, VOCA. All of these are included in civil rights. And I want to point that out, that when we refer to civil rights, we're not talking about just Title VI or just Title IX or just Title II. We're talking about everything that's in that big blue bubble. So what do you need to do in order to handle complaints? So all agencies are required to have written complaint procedures, a civil rights compliance coordinator, and non-discrimination notification that's in conspicuous places to the public and to employees and beneficiaries. You are required to notify OCJP. If you have a civil rights complaint, you'll have to refer to the manual on the webpage. So, again, this applies to subrecipients, clients, or employees. You'll use the civil rights notification form, which looks like this. if my computer will cooperate with me this morning. Here's what it looks like, Appendix P, Civil Rights Complaint Notification. This is our OCJP form. Getting a little ahead of ourselves. There we go. You will have to submit that form within 45 days, and you will submit that to the ocjp.compliance@tn.gov email address. And that form is available online at our on our civil rights page and also in our grants manual. And here's the email address that I just referenced. If there is an adverse finding by a court or administrative agency, whether that's federal or that's state, for either one, a copy must be submitted to us within 45 days. All right, next thing I want to go over is what is an Equal Employment Opportunity Plan, or an EEOP. So it is a comprehensive document, and it goes over a recipient's relevant labor market data and their employment practices. And it's there to ensure that there is full and equal participation in the workplace, regardless of race, color, or national origin. So some will include a utilization report if the agency is not exempt. And the EEOP requirement is established by the Safe Streets Act. VOCA also requires compliance with EEOP requirements. And the last thing that I want to mention is that you may hear it referred to as an affirmative action plan. Now, affirmative action plan is a little bit broader than an EEOP because it also states how an agency may try to right any wrongs that occurred in the discrimination arena. So it encompasses a little bit more. But if you hear affirmative action plan, EEOP is often thought of as the same thing. So just want to point that out. So what is an EEO utilization report? So it's a OCR screening tool, and it is required to be developed for any state or local government that have 50 or more employees in a single award of $25,000 or more. So if you're not a state or local government, or you have less than 50 employees, or your award is less than $25,000, then you're not going to have to develop the EEO utilization report. Here is a chart of the EEOP requirements. So as you can see, a nonprofit, Indian tribe, medical or education institution is not required to develop an EEOP. And so they would fill out what they call Section A of the certification form. Here is Section A of the certification form. So this is Section A right here, declaration claiming complete exemption from the EEOP requirement. So you would submit this to OCR if you were exempt. And that means you have less than 50 employees, or you're a non-profit organization, or you're receiving an award less than $25,000. Any of those things would apply. So as we go through this chart, we see that if you are a state or local government, but you have less than $25,000 in your award, then you would fill out Section A. Or if you are a state or local government and you have less than 50 employees, then you would fill out Section A. So these guys are exempt, these first three lines. If you are a state or local government and you have an award of greater than $25,000 but less than $500,000, and you have 50 or more employees, then you're going to have to develop an EEOP. However, you will not submit it to OCR. So what you will do is fill out Section B of this form, and this declares that you have an EOP on file and ready for review. So you will submit this certification form to OCR. The EOP itself you will keep on file. And that is if you are a state or local government with 50 or more employees and you have a single award of greater than $25,000 but less than $500,000. And the last group of people, or the last group of agencies, are those that are state or local government and they have an award of greater than $500,000 or $500,000 or more, and 50 or more employees. You have to develop an EOP. You do not submit a certification form, but you would submit the EEOP to OCR. Again, if you have any questions about this, we will post this WebEx and you can refer to this. You can also submit any of your questions to ocjp.compliance@tn.gov. So we're going to go over the Civil Rights Attestation. There are 4 sections to the Civil Rights Attestation, and the first 2 sections, the first section is policies and procedures. So we talk about in the first 3 questions the EEOP. The 4th question deals with the ADA self-evaluation. The 5th question asks about Title VI self-evaluations. The 6th question is asking about non-discrimination notices, and the 7th is asking about policies. The second section deals with training and staff responsibilities. So question 8 is asking about the training for all staff on civil rights. 9 is asking about the project director and the civil rights compliance officer, OCR training. 10 is asking about discrimination complaints, and 11 is asking about discrimination findings. And then the last question of that section, is asking about have you notified OCJP of any complaints or findings. The 3rd section deals with limited English proficiency practices. So question 13 wants to know, do beneficiaries have LEP access? And question 14 asks if the agency is reaching out to the LEP community. The last section of the attestation deals with agency practices. So question 15 asks about religious discrimination. 16 asks about if you're a religious institution, what are your religious discrimination practices or non-discrimination practices. Question 17 asks about sex discrimination in an education program or activity. 18 is asking about disability discrimination. 19 and 20 are both dealing with violence against women and whether they serve male victims or the services sex segregated or sex specific. So question 1 asks, has the agency developed an equal employment opportunity plan? Here is the website. This is on the attestation itself, and this is the website that you would go to in order to do that. I want to point out 2 things on this website. The first one is how can I tell if the recipient is subject to the Safe Streets Act? Remember, that's the act that establishes the EOP requirement. So you can go here, and it will tell you all those things that we've already gone over, and there's the certification form as well that we've looked at. And then it answers who is required and where do they need to send it if they're required to send the EOP utilization report in. So there's that. And you are exempt, as we've talked about before, if you're a nonprofit organization, you have less than 50 employees, or you have less than 50 employees, or you're not receiving an award of greater than $25,000 or more. You would, in that case, to claim an exemption, complete Section A of the certification form and send it to OCR. And that means you'll answer yes to question 3 on the attestation, which we'll see in just a minute. Question 2 is asking, has an EOP plan been developed and submitted? So a lot of you, this will not apply because if you are exempt, then you're not going to be submitting a plan. And then the third question is asking, have you submitted an EEOP certification form to the Office of OCR, the OCR office? And if you're exempt from developing an EEOP, you'll submit Section A of the certification form to OCR. If you're not exempt, you will submit Section B of the certification form to OCR, and you will also have developed the EEOP but be maintaining it on file. The fourth question is asking if the agency has completed an ADA self-evaluation, so you will just answer that question. The fifth question is, have you completed any assurances or Title VI self-evaluations? The sixth question is asking, have you posted non-discrimination notices in conspicuous places for all clients and employees to see? And so this, what we see here is the OCJP non-discrimination notice, and that is available in the appendices of the grants manual, and you can post that. The seventh question is asking if your policies and procedures that are relevant to civil rights, are they available for review? And do they include how to file a complaint? Question 8 is asking, does the agency provide civil rights compliance training annually to all staff? And so do notice that we must have the date of the most recent training, and we ask about the format of the training. There is no specific training required, but the training must cover more than just Title VI. So it must cover all those other statutes that were referred to in the big blue bubble on slides 5 and 6. You may use our Form Stack Civil Rights training. If that's what you want to use, you're welcome to, and that will fit the bill. And it is here. And this is what it is. And this training consists of OCR civil rights training videos. But you may use this to fulfill that requirement for staff training on non-discriminatory issues in civil rights compliance. And remember, this must be annually. The quiz, as part of that Form Stack Civil Rights training, there is a quiz that is not required for all staff. As we'll see in the next question, it's only required for the project director and the Civil Rights Compliance Officer. Documentation that staff has completed this training is required for every grant-funded staff member. It just needs to be in their personnel file. So question 9 asks specifically about the project director and civil rights compliance officer and whether or not they've completed the OCR training. So this is specific. It must be the OCR training within 90 days of the start of the contract and annually thereafter. And again, we must have the date of the most recent training. Get back to that. So in this instance, the difference here is that they have to do the OCR training, but the project director and the civil rights compliance officer will also have to take the quiz, the Form Stack quiz that is at the end of that training. And so the person who takes the quiz will get notified whether they passed or failed, and so you'll just need to have a record of that. The 10th question asks if there have been any complaints of discrimination against the agency in the last 12 months. So if I know there's an NA there, but that's no longer an option. You either have to answer yes or no. And if you did have any complaints, did you notify OCJP? So that's something that we would have to get more information on if you did have any complaints. The next question asks about, have there been any findings of discrimination in the last 12 months? And again, the NA is no longer going to be an option. You must answer yes or no. If you did have any findings, we're going to want to know the details, and so hopefully you've already notified OCJP at this point when you're going through this adaptation. The last question of this section asks, have you complied with the requirement to submit the complaints or discrimination or findings of discrimination to us within the required 45 days? So if you answer no or NA, that's okay as long as both questions 10 and 11 are no. The next section talks about LEP practices or limited English proficiency. Question 13 is asking, do clients have meaningful access to services? And the 14th question is asking, does the agency or have a process to reach out to the LEP community? So I just want to note that brochures are okay here, and also that the project may not have any LEP clients, but the agency may. So you'll just answer those questions accordingly. 15th question asks about, do you discriminate based on religion? So, and there are three really semi-questions to question 15, and all three have to be answered in order to be able to answer the question yes. So if your agency answers this yes, but one of these boxes is blank, then you're going to have to either answer it no, or you'll have to answer all of these yes. So you cannot answer yes if you cannot say that you do all three of these things. And that's going to be the case on several of the next questions that we go over. Question 16 may not apply to you because it is asking about if your agency is a religious institution or a faith-based organization, so it very well may not apply to you. If it does, however, just remember that you have to be able to say that you're doing all three of those actions, these three right here with the boxes to the left, in order to be able to answer this question yes. If you're not doing all three of these, then you have to answer no. Question 18 is asking if you receive $25,000 or more in assistance from the DOJ and you have 50 or more employees, then have you taken these three steps to ensure non-discrimination? And if this question applies to you and you answer yes, then you must be able to attest that you've taken all three of these actions. Question 17 is applies to those that operate an education program or activity. And so if you do, then, and you want to feel that this question should be yes, make sure that you are doing all three of these things. If you're not, then you must answer the question no. Question 19 is asking about serving male victims if you're receiving funding under the Violence Against Women Act. So this would apply if you're receiving Stop SASP or FITSA funding. And so if it applies to you, you need to answer it yes or no. The last question is asking about if, again, if you're receiving funding under the Violence Against Women Act, so it would apply to Stop SASP or FITSA. Are you providing sex-segregated or sex-specific services? And there are several sub-questions under here. So if you answer yes, please make sure you go through and answer these questions describing how the services are sex-segregated or sex-specific. And have you determined that it's essential to the operation of the program, and how you determine that. And that concludes going over the attestation as well as civil rights compliance. So if you have any questions, again, please email us at ocjp.compliance@tn.gov or refer to the grants manual online or our civil rights page on our website. Thank you so much.